Hi,
Hi
Christine.
everyone.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Amazing. You're now live from Sonderland's 2021. We're so happy to have you, and now the stage is yours.
Thank you so much. This is
Of
really
course.
amazing to be live right now. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm Christine Chama. I'm from Zambia. That's a country in Africa. Christine is a disability advocate, also a social worker, and I also happen to be a development practitioner. So I just want to give briefly my childhood background. I think I'll start from there. So Kristen Chaba is a second born child in a family of four children, and I happen to be the only female child in my family. And then when I was born, um, I was born with a disability. Yes, or a, yeah, a disorder. So I have a condition known as osteogenesis imperfecta, which is also called brittle bone disease. So since my birth, I've had that condition, and I'm still living with it. So in short, um, I am a person living with a disability since birth. But um, due to that condition of due to my disability condition, and also looking at the country where I am and the society which I grew up in, I must say it wasn't really an easy journey for me. It hasn't really been easy to live with a disability because first of all, I was the first person in my family to be born with a disability. And then also in my community, uh, it's basically the time I was born, not nothing much was known about persons with disabilities. So I think having that background, coming from that background, people could have people had negative perceptions about persons with disabilities. And also where I come from, the country where I come from, and the community where I come from, there are lots of myths uh, about persons with disabilities. People have got a lot of myths when a child is born with a disability. And through those myths that are there, they tend to bring about stigmatization towards that person with living with a disability. Families tend to break just because of having a child with a disability. So, being a person with or having a disability uh, sort of a lot of uh, disadvantages from the part of the country where I'm coming from. While growing up, my childhood, I could spend most of my time undergoing treatment. So I'll spend most of my time in hospitals undergoing medical surgery, undergoing physiotherapy, and I could spend a lot of months in hospital. So that also led to me not growing up like it is expected of any child without a disability. Not growing up playing around like it is usually expected of a child of my age by then. So that has been briefly, that has been my journey. That has been my background where I'm coming from. But then, likely despite me born with a disability and facing all the challenges that I face, I have an amazing family. I think I'm one of the few that is blessed, a person with a disability that has got amazing parents that have always been there for me from day one. Though I must say, of course, some other family members couldn't really appreciate the condition that I was born with. But my parents always stood by my side. I'm so much blessed that they always took me as I was supposed to be taken as their own child. And they made sure they had to show me all the love and all the care. Whenever I was in hospital undergoing treatment, my parents were always there for me. They would always wait until I'm discharged from that hospital bed. And through my parents and wanting me so much to live an independent life, because they also understood the importance of me having an independent life despite me having a disability. My parents had to enroll me in a special school. Uh, yes, which is for children with physical disabilities. And this happened because where I was born, which is the city where I'm still in even now, it's called Kabwe, which is in the central province of Zambia. We don't have special schools that can accommodate a child with a disability. So my parents had to look for special schools out of my hometown. Luckily, they had to find some special schools out of my hometown, which were boarding schools. So I had to move into boarding school. So all of my education journey, I've been away from home because I had to be in a boarding school. So that has been how I've lived my whole life. I remember I first went to a boarding school, which is called as Cheshire Home, uh, in Lusaka, which is the capital city of Zambia. And there I was from nursery to grade one. Then later on, I had to be transferred to another boarding school, a special school, on the Copper Belt province of Zambia, in a district or town called Wansha. And the school is the Gamma School for the Physically Challenged Children. That's where I spent most of my school years, because I was there from most of my primary level until I completed my secondary level at grade 12. Then a time now came that I had to leave those special schools, that environment that I was so much used to, because it was I was in an environment where I was with other children, other fellow children with disabilities. So I felt that was a more comfortable environment for me. So at first, I must admit it was a bit challenging for me to accept the fact that now I had to leave that environment that I was so comfortable with, and now go back to a whole different environment. I didn't know how people will react to me, how people will accept me in this new different environment I had to go to. And it so happened because uh, in our country we don't have special schools uh, that offer tertiary education. So once a person with a disability, once they're done with their primary and secondary school, and if they do wish to further their education, uh, they have to enroll in the mainstream universities or colleges. So I reached that extent. I reached that point now that I had to make a decision whether I should further my education or I should just sit home with my grade 12 certificate, because now there wasn't any other special school where I could go to that could offer tertiary education. But through the encouragement of my family, trying to explain to me and making me understand the situation that I was in now. Uh, I'm glad I made the right decision, which I don't regret at all, even up to now. I had to make a decision to give it a try out, um, to see how life will be for me to go at a tertiary, to go and attain my tertiary education. So I had to enroll at one of the colleges here at El Cos in Lusaka, where I went to pursue social work. Yes. So the first month, or let me just, I think the first year, and it was quite a challenge for me to fit in. Because I also had to find jobs that, firstly, the infrastructure wasn't that accessible for me. It wasn't easy for me to access the lecture theaters. It wasn't easy for me to access uh, the rooms, the hostels where I had to stay, because I also had to be in a boarding. So it was quite a challenge for me. And at some point, I felt like giving up. I felt like going back home. Because I'm like, okay, what am I going to do? What am I doing here if I can't even access my lecture theater? Then what's the whole purpose of me being in school? But through a lot of encouragement, I had to undergo through a lot of mentorship, some sort of counseling, especially from my parents and some other people that were close to me. I had to hold on and push on. So I was at this institution for 2 years, and so I finally managed uh, to get myself, to obtain myself as a diploma in social work. Then, of course, I did graduate with very good results. And then now another point in my life came, now another chapter. I had to start another new chapter in my life. After graduating, of course, I think it's just normal for any young person now to think about how they will get a job with uh, with the qualification that they've gotten or they've obtained. So it was the case even in my it was the same issue even in my case. But then I had to look at which job opportunities would uh, accept me as a person with a disability, which job opportunities would accommodate my needs as a person with disability. And I must admit, it wasn't also an easy thing, or it wasn't an easy decision to come by, because when also look at the job opportunities, mostly that are available in my country, they are not so much inclusive of persons with disabilities. So as a person with disabilities, you have to take it upon yourself to prove to everyone to say you are able to work, you are able to do it. So you have to always prove to people to say people have to look more on your ability and not your disability. So it's something that is not easy to do, and it's not something that is easy to go through. But then I had, I just had to do it. Not, better not for everyone, but I had to do it for myself. I had to, I had to live a normal life like any other person would live. And the only way I could do that is for me to be in those environments that have negative perception about persons with disabilities, so that I can even help change those negative perceptions that people have. So likely I had to go through the process of I had to apply for a job, and I must say likely I only had to apply for one job opportunity. what was with the government. So I had to apply for job opportunities in social work at the department. The fact that I was holding a diploma in social work, and luckily I was offered the job, and that's how I got myself a job as a social worker or as a social care officer at the district office. And I think for me that was one of my dream captures. So the environment wasn't really suitable for me as a person living with a disability, the working environment, that I had to prove to everyone to say I'm able to do it. As much as I have a disability, I also have a lot of abilities and I'm able to work like any other person is able to work. And later, after, of course, while I was still working, I also thought it was to say I would want to further my education because I was just a diploma holder. So I was like, well, I've always wanted to be a degree holder. So why not take up this challenge again? I give it a try. So I had to go back to school, uh, where I had to go now for 4 years. Uh, so I had now to go to the highest learning institution in the country, which is the University of Zambia. And I must say, it was at this institution now that I became to learn more about myself because this was a totally different environment that I was in. I uh, I think whatever was expected that I would find was totally different from what I found. I had to face a lot of challenges where at some point, I mean, in my second year in the university, I even had to withdraw from school on medical grounds. And I think the medical problem wasn't because of the infrastructure that I had to use. Uh, I'm a person that uses crutches as my working aid, and looking at my condition also just as a perfecter, I'm not supposed to use staircases more often. But then I was now in this environment whereby I have to use staircases each and every day just for me to access my lecture rooms, for me to have access to the offices for my lecturers when I have to consult with some of my schoolwork, just for me to access the tutorial room. So that even became a bigger challenge for me. And so second day, my health couldn't just allow me to do it. And so I had to withdraw a bit from school for a year till I got better. But still, I had that zeal and passion with me that I still had to complete my education. So I had to go back uh, to continue my second year until finally last year I had to complete my 4 years. So my 4 years now had to turn into 5 years. Yeah, uh, of course. Which was, of course, at some point was so heartbreaking, but I just had to do it. And so this year, early this year, I even finally graduated. Uh, uh, I got myself a Bachelor of Arts degree in Development Studies with Sociology. So after my graduation, of course, I had to go back to my job because I only got a leave, a study leave for me to further my education. So luckily, I was accorded that opportunity, and I was allowed to go back for work. So I'm still a social care officer at the district level. So I'm now back in my hometown, Kabwe. That's where I'm working from. And yeah, it's now fun. It's quite an interesting journey as well. a lot of times also to facing some challenges, but it's something now that I've gotten used to. I'm now facing challenges that I would say I'm not able to handle. Yes, so that has been my life. That has been what I've been going through or what I've gone through. But then I think somebody would ask what has been the pushing force behind whatever I had to go through. The wife going through facing those challenges but still had to handle. I think for me, especially, like I said earlier, I also wanted to bring about a different message. Because where I was coming from, like I said earlier, persons with disabilities are not usually given opportunities to realize their abilities. Instead, there's so much of people thinking that a person with a disability, they are not able to do things on their own. As a result, they always need people around them to help them. Yeah, which is true. Yeah, we would need people to help us with certain things, but it doesn't mean that we're not able to do other things on our own. So I think the driving force for me has always been to help change that negative perception that society has of persons with disabilities, and also be a voice. I think that's also what has motivated me to going into advocacy. Being the voice, to say, and being a face that people can uh, uh, put together with a voice to say, a person with a disability is able to do this, and that, that, that. So that has been my driving force all along. So whatever have been doing, whatever I'm doing, and whatever I tend to do, always comes from that background of my driving force. Always comes from that background of me wanting to change the negative perception that people have. And I always want to be the change that I want to see. Because I so much believe that if you want to see something change, you should be, uh, you should first be the change that you want to see. Because I feel it sort of becomes pointless where at some point you keep on saying, uh, I want, people with disabilities to be participating in national affairs. What kind of people with disabilities to be given opportunities in all development spheres. But then if you're not being the lead yourself, because I believe for you to be given that opportunity, you have to start uh, doing something yourself on your own. So for me, I thought the need to say, if I want to be that change, if I'm talking about or advocating for education, let me go to school. So that people, even those people that I would approach to say, persons with disabilities need to be educated. They'll have some background to see. They'll have some evidence for them to see, to say, really, persons with disabilities need to school. So the only way I can do that is for me grabbing that opportunity that I was accorded to me by my parents to be educated, to be in school. So I had to make sure I had to work hard at school because I had to prove something, not only to myself but to society. So I had to prove to uh, people that had the different mindset from mine. So that's why I say whatever change you want to see, be the change that you want to see. It all starts from there, and it all borders on those lines. So that's kind of has been my journey, and I just hope, pray that someday I might be an inspiration to someone out there to say whatever challenges that you are facing, you are able to fight those challenges. I know we face different challenges depending on what societies we are coming from. But it's really important that uh, as you are fighting your challenges, first you have to have some self love for yourself. You have to accept yourself and the situation that you are in. And then from there, you'll be able to have the zeal and the power to face the many challenges that you are facing. And always remember that there's always uh, the, the brighter light at the end of the tunnel, no matter how life may seem dark at some point, but it will shine at the end of it and something. So you just have to have that faith, uh, keep up with that fighting spirit in you, because I believe we all have that fighting zeal with us. But what we just need is for us to realize that fighting spirit that is with us, and of course, make it come out, make it useful, and yeah, make it count. And so to young people, to every young person there, and to everyone attending this space today, I just hope I've been an inspiration. My story has been an inspiration. And if there are any persons with disabilities that are watching me right now, are hearing to my story right now, I think the message I'd like to pass through is that it's important that as persons with disabilities, we realize our abilities because that's the only way that society will be able to accept us and appreciate us as persons.
Well
Thank you
said.
so much for having me. Thank you so much for this
Well said,
opportunity.
Christine. Thank you so much for participating. Your speech was so inspiring and so